Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending from where in the world or when you're watching this. Uh, Today's topic is special. The title of this video might look like clickbait when you read it, but let me ask you just one question before you declare it clickbait. Is it really clickbait if you are telling the complete truth in the title? If I'm being completely truthful and not trying to be dishonest with you, is it really clickbait? There's a reason I even put the title in that way, is because I don't want to get detected fast. I want this to sink and kind of go under the radar. Why, you might ask? Well, it's because I really want to talk about today's game, but the game I'm about to discuss right now has some very peculiar restrictions applied to it. Restrictions that could potentially even damage my channel. I mean, I'm not going to exaggerate anything. It's not like they are going to close this channel, and I would never make this video if I thought they could completely erase the 100 hours or so of effort that I put into this channel so far. But I could end up getting my first copyright strike and maybe even a call from a lawyer or two. And that is all because of the unique condition of this game that I shall soon elaborate upon. And the deal with this game is it's a bit weird. It's not unique in the sense that it hasn't been tried before, but it was definitely never done to this extent. Other games may have ordered reviewers and players to not spoil their final moments. They might shut down the recording feature of the PS4, like for example in the final moments they might not allow you to take screenshots and stuff. But publisher Izanagi Games went 1,000 steps further and declared that their newest game could not be live streamed at all. You cannot capture video footage in any way or form from any part of the game without express authorization from the company. Even screenshots are forbidden from being taken after a certain point, and making a video only out of screenshots from any part of the game is a big no-no as well. If I'm interpreting their lawyer letter correctly. Yes, because they even got a lawyer to sign on to that. Well, to make all of this to prevent any part of the game from being spoiled in any way at all. The very first thing you see when you start up the game is a video of the main character asking you to not record it in any way, shape, or form, so as not to spoil the game. Have game companies finally gone crazy and decided that no marketing is better than any marketing at all? Or is all of this secrecy an attempt at marketing in the first place? Could it be that this is in fact all part of a genuine desire from the developers to not have their game spoiled? Well, I can only guess. It's not like I have a direct line to talk with anyone from Izanagi, but what I can do for sure is discuss the game that I played, because I played it, and maybe I can spin a few conjectures out of the experience I got. And as asked by Izanagi Games, I will not be using any footage from the game at all. So like, if you want to put this on the background, listen to it while you do something else, that's perfectly fine. There are going to be some visuals maybe, but nothing spectacular. Nothing spectacular. You're not going to miss any in-jokes or anything. The only thing I'm going to use today is just the logo of the game, which is still technically their property. It's still technically Izanagi Games' property. So here it is. I'm begging, in complete honesty with you, please don't take this video down. Please don't sue me, okay? Alright, here we go. So here it is. Here comes the logo. And so as you can see today, I'll be talking about, in case you haven't heard of this game yet, Death Come True. The latest thriller from Genius Creator Kazutaka Kodaka, the brains behind the Danganronpa series. If this video sounds too vague, forgive me, but I'll be trying to spoil as little as possible of the experience in order for anyone interested to play it in the way the developers intended. The game focuses on the story of an amnesiac man. Oh wow, what a surprise. Video games love those. And he wakes up in a hotel room with of course, as Amnesia usually does, no memory of who he is. The only clue he has to his possible past life is a news report that is coincidentally being broadcasted the moment he wakes up, in which reporters talk about the recent string of murders committed by serial killer Makoto Karaki. And, turns out he looks exactly like Karaki. And, he might be a serial killer. It doesn't take long, however, before a series of unfortunate events leads to his death, which would have just been a normal game over screen in most cases, but as it turns out, our main character instead discovers he has a hidden superpower. Whenever he dies, he merely returns to the beginning of the events, waking up once again inside his hotel room. Now it's up to him to die again and again in the hopes of figuring out what the hell is going on and if he really is a serial killer. One of the biggest differences between Death Come True and Kodaka's previous projects is that this is a FMV game, a full motion video game. In other words, the entire game is made of pre-recorded footage of real actors doing real acting. No 2D cutouts or 3D modeled characters, it's all real people. In fact, the marketing for the game emphasized this by exaggerating the game's main feature with the tagline, "Is it a game? Is it a movie?" And I mean, come on, let's be real here. FMV games have existed for longer than I've been alive. They're older than me. This is nothing new to the industry. But they even went through the trouble of getting Japanese movie website eiga.com to review it like it was a real movie. They really want people to believe they are pushing the boundaries of video games and movie making with this one. And when one thinks from that perspective, I can sort of understand why they don't want people streaming this one. After all, common sense says you can stream video games, alright? But you can't stream entire movies on the internet. That would just be straight up piracy, wouldn't it? And it made even more sense when I finished Death Come True, because in the end, my final playtime was of exactly 2 hours and 12 minutes, which is pretty much a reasonable length for a movie, which means compared to the usual playtime of games these days, or even games of this type, you could easily stream all of it to an audience of first-timers and get them to see all the way to the end before going, "Wait, that's it?" Not even realizing that, yeah, you just watched the entire game. So from that perspective, yes, I can understand where they're coming from with all this secrecy. Death Come True is much more of a movie than a video game, even from a gameplay perspective, because the gameplay you see is pretty much watching a video, then selecting between different options to watch other videos. Sometimes you die, sometimes the main character dies, and other times the main character also dies, with the main difference being that some deaths advance the story and others don't. But most of the time there is little indication between which options will advance the story and which won't, so it's up to you to pretty much trial and error your way across the story until you pick the right options to lead you to the end. That is in fact a very quick and apt description for this game. Death Come True is a movie where you must trial and error your way to the ending. So, with the gameplay being basically non-existent, how is the story after all? Well, without spoiling anything, I think the game might be a bit too tiny to tell a proper mystery story. The short runtime means they must rush through plot points that would have been properly explored and expanded upon in any other game of this type. The cast is too small for you to get enough suspects to make up a good murder mystery, and the overall mystery of the setting itself is also incredibly predictable. In fact, I was disappointed when I reached the ending that as soon as they gave the first hint of what was happening, I was able to correctly predict 80% of the remaining plot. About 80-85% of the remaining plot. I made a guess and I was like, man, I bet this is going to happen, and 85% of it happened. And for a game so reliant on its central mystery, that kind of sucks, really. It's a mystery game where I guessed everything before it happened. But, of course, there was at least one twist that I didn't see coming. And that twist was really, really good. It was really, really freaking good. And I had never seen it done before. It was one that relied on the nature of Death Come True as a video game as well. So, it couldn't have just been a movie and did the same twist. But, well, even if the rest of the plot was predictable, considering how short the game is and how cheap it is as well, it is a very cheap experience. It is like less than a movie ticket, I think, but I'm not sure what the price is right now in dollars, or how movie tickets are like sold in the United States right now or anywhere else in the world. Depending on where you are in the world, yeah, it might not be the same as a movie ticket, but it is relatively cheap. It is cheaper than a movie ticket where I live. And considering how cheap it is and how short it is, this twist alone might have been worth the admission fee. I just wish they came up with something more original for everything else. Even if everything else wasn't on the level of originality of this twist, I think the other parts of this story were really lacking originality compared to other games of this type. Another problem I had with the story is that's the characters. Some characters only exist for a single scene, which makes the tiny cast even tinier. And hell, I had to replay the game and try to see all of the optional scenes, which took me like 15 extra minutes, before figuring out one of them even existed, since they only show up once in an optional scene, despite them being in the damn game poster. They are in the game poster, and they only show up once in an optional scene. I actually had assumed when I played the game through the first time and I didn't see them, that they had been cut from the game for some reason, time constraints, or maybe the developers didn't like the way the plot was going. I thought they were cut before I found this one optional scene. And at least one other character exists only as an exposition dump. Honestly, comparing this cast to the other more colorful, well-developed characters from similar games and even Kodaka's previous affairs, this makes this entire affair seem even sadder. The final nail in the coffin is when a character straight up started using new skills when there was no indication that they ever had the abilities necessary to pull off their actions. Seemingly for the sake of keeping the plot moving along and to be able to wrap it up as quickly and neatly as possible in the short time frame the game takes place in. Honestly, there are so many casualties of the game's short runtime that instead of making a movie game, I think they should have just tried to do a mini-series game instead that would have more time to expand upon the characters and concepts that they wanted to delve into. Maybe episodic, maybe not. But I honestly don't have a contact with Izanagi Games or anything. Like always, I am a small YouTube channel. I have no contact with these people. So all I can put on the table is pure conjecture. But I think that maybe that is not an option. That was not an option for Izanagi Games at all. Considering how cheap the game is, and how sudden the announcement was, and how short the time from announcement to release was, it's entirely possible they just did not have the budget or time to try for something more grandiose, and they simply had to settle for what they could do. If so, I feel sorry for them. I believe there's this common knowledge. I don't always agree with common knowledge, but if there's one common knowledge that I sort of agree with, is that I believe artists can do some real cool stuff when they have to get creative under constraints. But if you add too many constraints, in the end of the day, you just can't deliver anything above a certain grade. And if that's the case here, wow, I feel sorry for them. Terrible for bashing the story for quite a few minutes. But, by the way, in case I have come through as overly harsh during this review, a trash game is not what Death Come True is at all. Death Come True's story might leave a lot to be desired to me, who is already very well versed in locked room mysteries and death games of all sorts. Damn, there must be another title like Japanese thriller games of all sorts. But it is still undeniably a well-polished product. Everything from the user interface to the production value of the videos is great. I'm not going to pretend I'm some cinematic enthusiast, but I think the videos it was all well shot, very well shot, very well produced, and I can clearly see the amount of effort the developers put into this game, even if the plot they try to hold together in the end is not all that great. And there's even like when you start unlocking different stuff, there are extras that are behind the scenes making movies, and I love when they put in those extras like to show how the game was done. As a person who is very interested in the way a game was done, I love to see the process of game making, and the game has those extras. So like it's not just a short experience, you can actually stay with it a little bit more with the extra footage that they got. Okay, so yeah, I kind of got rambling, but back on script. It's time for my final recommendation verdict. And I have to say, if you're a first timer to the world of Japanese thriller games, or if you're looking for an appetizer before Izanagi publishes their next big game, Death March Club, then Death Come True's short length and cheap price definitely fits the bill. But if you're already familiar with works like this one, or maybe if you want to get something properly meaty, something that represents like what a full-fledged game of the genre might have to offer, I recommend you should check out 428. 428 is also amazing. Even if it is mostly made out of photographs instead of video footage, I believe it represents the true potential of live action when used in games. And I think you might have a better time there if you're looking for meat. But if you're okay with a more lean meal, I suppose you could call that, Death Come True does fit the bill. So that's it. At the center of this mystery surrounding the game that shall not be streamed lies simply a good movie that unfortunately doesn't live up to the legacy of its creators. Well, that was anticlimactic. But as a final side note, have you guys seen Izanagi Games' website? Like, what the hell is this even? I can barely see the names of the games in this background. I actually had to stare at it for a few minutes before figuring out where the hell the Death Come True logo is, because it's just unidentifiable in this mess. Who designed this? Why?